Hello all, I'm Sai and you're watching The Book Dragon. In today's video, I'm bringing to you a huge book haul in which I have a total of 17 books to show to you guys. I've divided this book haul into two stacks because I bought the first 7 books and the other 10 books I just acquired for free. First, I'll show you the 7 books which I bought from the Great Indian Festival, and then we'll move on to the free stack and I'll tell you guys how I got them. So without any further ado, let's get into the books right away. The first book in this book haul is Solitaire by Alice Oseman, which is the first book by the author. Ever since I read some of the other books by Alice Oseman way back in January, I've been wanting to read all of their books, and only now I've acquired all of them as physical copies. I just have 3 more books by the author left to read, and I'm sure that I'll be reading them in the next couple of months or so. So you'll be getting a dedicated Alice Oseman video soon in the channel, so do look out for it if you're interested. Here we follow the story of Tori, who's actually the sister of one of the 2 main characters from Heartstopper, Charlie. Now by the time the book starts, Tori does not have any friends, but she used to have friends in the past year. As of now, it's not like that, and she's also a blogger, because of which she has some friends online. Tori does not know anything real about Solitaire because they are only an online presence. At the same time, she also has this other person named Michael Holden whom she doesn't care about. If I'm not wrong, Solitaire is a bit darker in tone compared to the other works by Alice Oseman, but I have complete trust in this author, so I'm definitely going to read this pretty soon. So Solitaire is the first book in the book haul. The next few books are those which I've already read, but I just wanted to have copies of them because I'm sure that I'm going to reread them sometime in the future, and I also want to have them in my collection because I know that I'll be recommending these books so many times as you keep on watching videos in my channel. So the next 2 books in this book haul are Nick and Charlie and This Winter, both by Alice Oseman again. These are actually novellas from both Heartstopper as well as Solitaire. Both of them happen sometime in between Solitaire as well as Heartstopper. I've actually finished reading both of these as audiobooks, but I wanted the physical copies because these mostly contain the stories of both Nick and Charlie. So Heartstopper is completely a graphic novel, right? So it has a lot of illustrations which are just so cute and beautiful, and these also have some illustrations. I was not able to look at the illustrations since I listened to the audiobooks first. They are pretty short and they were also available at a lower price compared to how much they're usually sold at, so I just went forward and bought them. So Nick and Charlie and This Winter are the next 2 books in the book haul. The next 2 books are also by Alice Oseman, but after this we don't have any more Alice Oseman books, so you need not be worried about that. So I bought the 2nd and 3rd volumes of Heartstopper because I have the 1st and 4th volumes with me already. Again, I've finished reading Heartstopper until all the chapters that have been published so far, and I read Heartstopper for the first time in the Webtoon app for free. So if you're interested in reading Heartstopper, just go forward and read it for free from the Webtoon app. I'm sure that you'll want to buy the physical copies for yourself and keep them on your collection. I finished reading this way back in January, and ever since I've been wanting to buy these physical copies, but they were very expensive always. Again, during the Great Indian Festival, both of these were available around for 350 rupees, so I just went forward and grabbed the copies because I know that they'll not drop down so low in price anytime soon. So I have all the 4 volumes that have been published until now, and there is only one more volume that is yet to be published, and with that Heartstopper will be over. And one of the main reasons why I bought Heartstopper, even though it's a bit expensive, is because it is very therapeutic in its tone. Okay, no matter who you are, I'm sure that if you read Heartstopper, you will feel good and you will definitely love the story for what it is. It is written and illustrated in such a beautiful way by Alice Oseman. So if you've not read Heartstopper yet, just go forward and try it. I'm sure you will love it. The next one is a collector's edition, and it is the 5th anniversary edition of Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. I've said before in the channel that I want to buy all of the collector's editions and anniversary editions of the Shadowhunter Chronicles when they are being published as much as I can, and I'm making a very slow progress in that category, but it's okay. I'm glad that I bought this during this sale because it was just available for around 450 rupees, and usually it is around 600-700 rupees always, and I just went forward and bought the copy because again I knew that I'll not get it for such a low price anytime soon. The naked hardback is white and it also looks really pretty. Again, you can see that it is a huge book, right? It has another additional story that is written by Cassandra Clare, at the same time a letter, both of which I have not read yet. I'll tell you guys how I feel about it after I finish reading them. The last book from this stack of books which I bought is a non-fiction self-help book, and it is Grit by Angela Duckworth. I've been wanting to read this book also for the past 2 to 3 years. I can say ever since I finished college, and the main reason why I want to read this book is because I watched a TED Talk video by this author 2 to 3 years back, and ever since I watched it, I've been wanting to read this because the way in which the author talks about grit and how much it is necessary for us to achieve all the goals that we set for ourselves was really brilliant. Personally, I'm also a person who believes a lot more in grit and perseverance compared to intensity of doing something at a point. I'm sure that intensity does give us high successes during specific points, but consistency and perseverance always help us to keep ourselves motivated and keep moving on forward, even though sometimes life might seem like a plateau and there are not that many peaks. And I also believe that intensity is good because it does provide us a good high, but that high does not persist for a longer amount of time because because once that energy drops, everything drops automatically with it. Because of all these reasons, I definitely want to read this book because I believe in the concept of grit and perseverance more than anything else. So I'm definitely super excited to read this one. Moving on to the second stack of books, I got all these books from Bookchore in exchange for 2 collaborations which I did with them in the past few weeks. If you're interested, you can just go back and watch those videos. I have a total of 10 books here and they allowed me to choose all of those 10 books because I was sure that I'll be able to read those books only if I choose them, because I don't want some random books to be sent to me. So all the 10 books that I'm going to show you guys now are books either which I've been wanting to read for the past few years or books which you guys have been wanting me to read. So let's get into that stack right now. So the first book in this stack is The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness, which is the first book inside the Chaos Walking trilogy. One of you guys have been asking me to read the series for over the past year and I've been continuously saying that I'll pick it up pretty soon. Finally, I got my hand on the first book inside the series, so I'm definitely going to start reading it pretty soon. And if I end up liking the first book, I'll also continue on with the series and finish all the other 2 books also. Personally, my experience with reading Patrick Ness books have been really good in the past because I've read 4 to 5 of his books and I've rated all of them either 4 or 5 stars because they have this very peculiar contemporary as well as mysterious supernatural tone attached to them, and I personally like that kind of stories because I'm not that kind of reader who reads stories which are completely set up in a paranormal or supernatural world itself, because I don't think that's my type. But with every one of Patrick Ness's books, I've always liked the concept and the way in which he executes them. In this book, we are basically following a boy named Todd who's on the verge of manhood, and once he becomes an adult, he'll start hearing the voices of all the other men who are surrounding him, and because of this, he'll have a lot of mental noise in his head, and as a result of this, he'll not be able to think straight and think things through properly. That's basically all I know about the series, and I'm sure that Patrick Ness will do a good job with it because I know that he takes really unique concepts and executes them really well. So if I end up liking this book, I might watch the movie also. Let's just wait and see. The next book is by a very famous author and it is The Dead Fathers Club by Matt Haig. I already have one unread book by Matt Haig on my shelf and it is The Last Family in England. I also finished another book by the author just the day before I'm filming this video and it is The Possession of Mr. K. That book was very depressing and sad in its tone, but the way in which the author has written it and gone into the head of the main character and narrated it from the first person's point of view was really nice. And I'm not sure I'll be able to summarize this book without reading it because I read the blurb of the book and it sounds a bit bleak for me, so I'm just going to read out the blurb for you guys so you can get an idea of what the book is about. Philip Noble is an 11-year-old in crisis. His pub landlord father had died in a road accident and his mother is succumbing to the greasy charms of her dead husband's brother, Uncle Alan. The remaining certainties of Philip's life crumble away when his father's ghost appears in the club and declares Uncle Alan murdered him. Arming himself with weapons from the school chemistry cupboard, Philip vows to carry out the ghost's relentless demands for revenge. But can the words of a ghost be trusted any more than the lives of the living? So that sounds like it has a supernatural layer again. The Possession of Mr. Cave also had a supernatural facet to it, but it was not completely supernatural in its tone. So if you've read this book before, do tell me how it is in the comments below so that I can have a certain kind of expectation when I'm reading the book. The next one is a magical realism book and it is The Toy Makers by Robert Dinsdale. This book has been on my radar for the past 2 to 3 years, but I've not remembered it constantly because it has not been marketed that much as the other such books inside this genre. And I've heard that this is kind of similar in its tone to The Night Circus, which I did not like reading, because here we follow a family of people who are toy makers and they have this toy shop called the Emporium in London during the time of the Second World War. And when the World War is going on outside in the world, people can just escape into this toy shop and buy some products from the toy makers, and all of these toys are magical in some way because they are built by that particular type inside their family itself. So when our main character Kathy is thrust into this world, what she feels about it and what are the things that she discovers is the main plot of the book. I think it will be more atmospherically driven compared to the plot. So let's just wait and see how it is going to go. The next one is yet another very famous book and it is also a Booker Prize winner. It is The God of Small Things by Arundati Roy, which I've been wanting to read for the past 2 years, I can say, because I saw the audiobook of this one available in Tamil in Storytel in the ending of 2020, but after that I was not attracted to read that at all because of various reasons, I don't know why. But I've seen the reference for this book in multiple books that I've read so far, especially in Indian books. So I want to read this for sure because here we follow the story of 7-year-old twin sisters Elsta and Rachel who are growing up in Kerala, and their life is very comfortable and happy just like any other kid. But with the arrival of their cousin Sophie, their world is totally irrevocably shaken, and because of this many things start happening in their household. At the same time, the political turbulence inside the country is also driving their household in a very sad path, and I'm not sure how that is going to affect the entire story as a whole. I'm sure that many of you guys have read this book, so tell me what I can expect from this, because I've heard that it's a sad story but it is also whimsical in its tone. So again, I have really high expectations for this one. The next one is a YA contemporary and it is On the Come Up by Angie Thomas, which is the second book of the author who wrote The Hate You Give, which is a book book that I read 4 years back, and it was a great book. I think it is a must read for everyone because everyone needs to read what that story is about and try to understand all the complexities that are going on in the world. It is a book that deals with the Black Lives Matter movement, and it is very important. So this is the second book by the same author, and it deals with another character from the same locality from which the main character from The Hate You Give star is from. And here we follow the story of 16-year-old Bree, whose dream is to become one of the greatest rappers of all time, but she has some problems that are going on in her life, of which the most important one is that she is considered to be a troublemaker in her school, and because of this she has only negative expectations on her, and because of this she is also taunted in many ways. At the same time, her house is also not a happy place to be because her mother has recently lost her job. Because of all these reasons, Bree has to become the one person whom she is expected to be by the society. I totally trust the writing and voice of the characters from this author because after reading The Hate You Give, I've always wanted to read the other books by this author. I'm definitely sure that this is going to be good, and after finishing this I'll probably watch the movie also. The next two books are by the same author, and they are by Jhumpa Lahiri. The books are Lowlands and Interpreter of Maladies. If I'm not wrong, Interpreter of Maladies is far more popular compared to Lowlands because it's the first book by the author and it is also the Pulitzer Prize winner. Again, I'm not sure I'll be able to sum up these books without reading them properly to you guys, so I'm just going to read out the blurb. And if you've read both of these books, please do let me know down in the comments how they are and what I can expect from them, because I've not read any other book by this author, even though I have another book by her on my shelf. I think I'll be reading them soon, but for now let's just see these blurbs. Traveling from India to New England and back again, the stories in this extraordinary debut collection unerringly chart the emotional journeys of characters seeking love beyond the barriers of nations and generations. Imbued with the sensual details of Indian culture, they also speak with universal eloquence to everyone who has ever felt like a foreigner. Like the interpreter of the title story, which has been selected for both the O. Henry Award and the Best American Short Stories, Lahiri translates between the strict traditions of her ancestors and the baffling new world. So this feels like a more inclusive collection of short stories written by the author. Now the Lowland. From Subhash's earliest memories, at every point, his brother was there. In the suburban streets of Calcutta, where they wandered before dusk, and in the hyacinth-strewn ponds where they played for hours on end, Udayan was always in his older brother's sight. So close in age, they were inseparable in childhood, and yet as the years pass, as US tanks roll into Vietnam and riots sweep across India, their brotherly bond can do nothing to forestall the tragedy that will upend their lives. Udayan, charismatic and impulsive, finds himself drawn to the Naxalite movement, a rebellion waged to eradicate inequity and poverty. He will give everything, risk all, for what he believes, and in doing so will transform the futures of those dearest to him. So both of these seem like books with really strong content. I just hope that they are up to my taste. The next one is Out of the Maze by Dr. Spencer Johnson, which is the sequel to Who Moved My Cheese by the same author. I read that one as an audiobook in the ending of last year, I think, and it was really good. I read it as Tamil audiobook and it was very entertaining, at the same time super informative as well. It is basically just a story, and the way in which the author explains the concepts that he's trying to explain to us through that story is just excellent. As you can see, it is very tiny, so it will not even take that much time to read. So this is the next one. First one is The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. My brother has actually finished reading the audiobook version of this one, and he has said that it is really good in its tone. I'm a person who likes self-help books which are very positive in its tone, and this specifically talks about positive thinking alone. If I'm not wrong, this book is also one which has been for so many decades from the past. If it has the same tone as The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, I'm sure that I will like it. And I've also heard that this has a lot of references from Christianity. I don't care what religion something draws a good concept from. If it is something that can help my life and help me become a better version of myself, I always just go for and try reading it. So I'm definitely going to give this a try. The last book in this book haul is the first book inside the Devlok series by Devdutt Pattanaik. This is the series on which Devdutt Pattanaik talks about the history of Hinduism and many other aspects of it. It is basically just a guide to Hinduism, if I'm not wrong, and there is an adaptation of this one on Epic TV which was also written by Devdutt Pattanaik himself. I've not watched that show, but I'm very interested in reading the books by him because I know that he has a very deep and wide knowledge of Hinduism and everything that he talks about. I've read a few of his other books before, but not books which are over 100 pages long, so I'm definitely interested in reading this one. I just hope that this series is just as good as the other works by the author. So yes guys, those are all the books which I wanted to talk about, and if you've read any of the books which I've talked about, please do let me know down in the comments how they are and what I can expect from them. And if you did enjoy watching today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. And if you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.